who is the Chief Executive Officer of the White Meat Company, Private Limited Zimbabwe. He's not only a visionary agribusiness leader, but also a very successful restaurant owner, entrepreneur, and a true rabbit revolutionary. It's something that you can be hearing today, but it's something that is actually taking shape. And is one person that I'll tell you, when I was watching the videos that they've been doing, he has been driving innovation and redefining the meat industry in Zimbabwe. And through his leadership, he's actually creating sustainable opportunities for farmers, shaping food security, and inspiring a new generation of agripreneurs. So, guys, join me in giving a warm welcome to Mr. Bright Makuchete. And if you visit his social media handles, trust me, you actually be glued to keep on watching. And it is my pleasure that upon just sending a message to him, I've tried so many entrepreneurs, and it took me 6 months to take them to the Africa Diaspora Business Platform. And after taking them to the Africa Diaspora Business Platform, that's when they realized, oh, it's actually working for their businesses. But for him, it only took an hour, and it was outside his business hours, and he's here. Thank you so much, my brother. I'm very much pleased, and I'm very happy that we still have Zimbabweans who can value just a text message on WhatsApp. I was watching you on Facebook doing whatever. I follow Kelvin Period, and I followed the interview that you did with Kelvin Period. And after that interview, I then followed you on Facebook just to watch whatever has been happening. And I realized we often think of so many things that are complicated, but there are things that we could be doing even in a week's time, and we are able to make a living. So, my brother, I'm going to give you this opportunity to interact with the guys in the diaspora. The numbers here, they could be less, but what we are going to do is we are recording this, and we are going to repurpose it for others to keep on viewing and also get to understand kuti nyika inovakwa nevene vayo. And when we say nyika inovakwa nevene vayo, we are not talking politics. We are talking about Zimbabweans ourselves. We are the people. We are supposed to build the Zimbabwe that we want. So thank you so much. Over to you, Mr. Bright.
Thank you so much, Comrade Tinashe. Thank you for this time that you've awarded me. And yes, it is true. I'm very happy to be here. You know, those who have been following me like you have are aware that I've been shouting from mountain tops for people to come into the rabbit farming space. The background story to this is that I basically was looking for a way to survive in a Zimbabwe economy that is topsy-turvy. You know, it's always giving us these ups and downs and surprises, never curveballs. So a few years back, I was caught in a whirlwind of economic turmoil, and I wanted to find a way out as a way of sustaining my livelihood and that of my family, and also securing the future of my family. I have to tell you that I was coming from a background of chicken farming after I stopped working in the corporate world, where I was a senior, manager, having left that to start my own business in the motor industry. I did that from the year 2000 and stopped that in 2012. Then I kind of went into the wilderness for about 3 years, where I was basically just trying to find out, find out what to do with myself and how to sustain my family and myself. So I started doing chicken farming, broiler farming, which is something that people really have taken to heart in Zimbabwe for many years. But as I was doing broiler farming, I then realized that in Vayo, big corporates that have been doing it for almost a century. One of the, I don't want to mention names here, but one of the biggest players in the country, has been doing broiler farming for almost 100 years, and they've got it locked down, for lack of a better word. In other words, they control the value chain from the egg to the chick to the feed, as well as compete with you on the marketplace. In the supermarket, they've got products in store. Despite the fact that yeah, we are buying everything from them, there's very little support for the little guy. And to me, it appeared to be very wrong that such big corporates can still then enjoy the privilege of competing with the little guy in store. I felt that was unfair trade practice, but this is Zimbabwe. You can't go anywhere and shout or complain about that and make any headway. So I started to think of ways that we could level the playing field a little bit. In our little way, we said, what can we do where we, as farmers, can have little control, or at least significant control, in the value chain of what we are farming? So at that time, interestingly enough, I had a brother-in-law of mine that had gifted me a few rabbits, again, and I just put them in my backyard. And I want to speak quickly. It's an interesting story, but I want to speed it up because we don't have that much time. So I put them in the backyard whilst doing my broiler farming, and we were distributing the broiler chickens that we were farming, on our property. We had a couple of properties where we had erected sheds that had a capacity of 3,000 birds at any given time. So we would be putting them out in batches of 500 every week and distributing them in what I was calling urban chicken farming. So that was working for us for a while as a way of self-sustenance. And then, but given the competition from the bigger guys, and then the COVID pandemic that happened 2019, 2020, I then realized that we had very little control on that value chain, because a lot of product was then dumped on the market at very, very low prices. But for me, it was an eye opener, because I then realized that if these guys can pull the rug from under our feet at any time like this, it means that we are only farming and operating at their behest, at their mercy, if you like. So in the meantime, started noticing that the rabbits were multiplying at a very alarming rate. In fact, my son stepped to me and he said, Dad, we need more space for the rabbits. And I said, what rabbits? He said, the rabbits you put in the back there, we've been feeding them cabbages, we've been feeding them this, and they've just been multiplying. Now they can't fit in the cages and we need more space. I just want to do a sound check. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
Fantastic. Fantastic. So I then went to the back of the yard where we were keeping the rabbits, and I noticed that those 13 rabbits that my brother-in-law had gifted me were now 50 something, and the accommodation was no longer, So it rang a bell in my head that, what? If rabbits can multiply that much with so little attention, and I was now comparing that with the broiler chickens that I was doing, which required so much human attention. Kukapisa, they would die. Kukanaya, they would die. If you don't vaccinate, they die. For many different reasons. And the mortality rate on broilers was so high. It's something that you hear little about when you are venturing into the actual farming business, into the broiler farming business. You don't always get to hear about the high mortality involved in broiler chicken farming. No matter how well you are doing it, they die, So, and versus the rabbits that were in the backyard, with very little attention, leaving them leftovers, and they were multiplying like that and just basically looking after themselves. So something rang in my head, and I said, rabbit is meat, and it's white meat, just like chicken. So if we're gonna do, why don't we look deeper into this? So I started to personally look into rabbit farming as an alternative to broiler chicken farming. So I researched and I went into self training, digging deep into the internet, deep searching information. And one of the things I first found was that there is very little information about rabbit farming on the internet, but there is a huge market for rabbit meat, well, which is global, with China being the biggest consumer of rabbit meat and also the biggest, incidentally, they are also the biggest producer. I also discovered that they actually import rabbit meat from smaller producers globally, such as Egypt in Northern Africa, that is doing so much rabbit farming, with 8% of their GDP being accounted to rabbit farming industry, the actual rabbit farming itself, and other related industry in the farming value chain. 8%. So I got curious and I looked in deeper to see what the GDP, and this was what, 2020, 2021, and Egypt's GDP at that time was indicated at about 160 billion. And I calculated 8% of that to be about 10, 11 billion. And at that time, the Zimbabwe's GDP was at an estimated 12 billion US dollars. So it really, really struck me to say, look, if the rabbit industry in Egypt is able to bring so much into their GDP, into their fiscus, why can't we take this seriously as Zimbabwe? So I started looking around the Southern African region to see if anyone was doing rabbit farming at a grain scale, only to find that no one was really doing it at a grain scale. South Africa next door, they are so busy with cereals and large grain production and cattle production, they were not really focused on, they do have rabbit breeders, but more like um, habitual, farmers doing rabbit farming as a hobby and grooming rabbits, but not really for commercial purposes. So I was intrigued to see why no one in Southern Africa was doing rabbit farming at a commercial level, just like what Egypt was doing in Northern Africa. So I started to change the way that I was looking at rabbits as a backyard project. And I said, let me look at it and turn it into a commercial enterprise, a proper business, and take all the experience I have learned over the years through business and through, working for others. If I can turn all that knowledge and experience and apply it to rabbit farming, and see what will come from that. So, with my research showing that rabbit meat is leading in terms of nutritional values, don't take my word for it. Anything that I say, fact check it. We live in a modern age of information, and you can fact check a lot of the things that I'll be saying, even as I'm saying them. But I started doing comparisons and running comparisons between rabbit meat versus pork, rabbit meat versus beef, rabbit meat versus chicken, in particular broiler chicken. And I discovered that in almost every instance, if not all, rabbit meat was always coming ahead in terms of nutritional values. That is, the health benefits, even in the culinary industry, the taste is better, and so on and so forth. Some of these things I would like to urge you to look up for yourself online. So, armed with that knowledge and a lot of research, I then made a decision, a bold decision, to turn away from broiler chicken farming, which was really, to be honest with you, and no offense to anyone here that is doing broiler farming, but it was such a pain having to wake up in the middle of the night to make sure that the heaters were on, that the heaters haven't turned off, just in case the brooders or the young chicks die, because they need a certain temperature to be maintained in the brooders. So I was doing this with my family, and seeing my wife waking up in the middle of the night to go and to check on the chickens was heartbreaking. So I said, no, man, this is not what I married this woman for. This is not what I'm kuti amuke pakati peusiku kunoisa mbaura muhuku, So it kind of was heartbreaking. And I decided at some point, and I'm paraphrasing because it's a long story, I decided that I'm going to take away all the effort I've been putting in the chickens, and I'm going to put it in the rabbit farming space. And this is how uh, we turned away the white meat company from chicken farming into rabbit farming. And as a rabbit farmer, every day I was learning something new up to now. And every day I was realizing that there is a lot more to rabbit farming at commercial level than what I had envisaged at the beginning when I started. I then realized that as much as I started to do it as a way of getting sustenance for my family, and a way of meeting our daily needs in terms of food and school fees and so forth, I realized that it was much bigger than me as an individual. And that is the turning point where I started calling other people to come into the rabbit farming space. Notably, I realized that the markets are huge. And the reason that we don't have rabbit meat supply contracts, or maybe, let me put it this way, the reason that we don't have rabbit meat in store is because the farmers that were doing it back then were just doing it as a backup project, and nobody's really ever crossed the line to turn it into a commercial enterprise. If I was to ask anyone in this meeting now to say, Kuti, if you want rabbit meat, where are you going to get it? Excluding White Meat Company and a few others that have been trying to copy us in that arena, where would you actually find rabbit meat? And I would like to put that question into perspective by saying that if you want broiler chicken meat, which is the competitor for rabbit meat, it's the main competitor, you can find it at every corner, at Chicken Inn, at Nando's, at OK Zimbabwe, in anywhere where you go, rabbit chicken is available. Now, in terms of nutritional values, rabbit meat is way ahead of chicken. But we have been groomed to believe that Wukundizo, but Andizo, and over research, I've discovered that, and this is what I've been sharing and preaching to people, to say that, guys, let's rise up as a nation. We have a unique opportunity as a country to rise up and become a mainstream supplier or a mainstream rabbit farming nation in Southern Africa. Not only do we benefit at individual level because rabbit meat or rabbit farming starts to reward you almost immediately, because you can sell the manure, you can sell the urine even before you start selling the meat, and then you sell the meat, and when you sell the meat, you've got the insides or the offals, which you can turn into dog feed and process it for that. Or you can also take the hides and process that into clothing apparel and furniture ornamental items, as well as throws for your bed, rugs, carpets, and so forth. It's all value addition in the rabbit farming space. And not only that, the country as an opportunity to export to global markets this meat, which is in high demand globally. And before we even start to think of exporting to other countries, how do we saturate the local market with rabbit meat the same way we've done, we've seen these big corporates doing with chicken? How do we put rabbit meat across the country in supermarkets, in butcheries, in restaurants, in schools, in universities? How do we get rabbit meat in prisons, in army barracks? How do we, anywhere where you find chicken or these other meats, rabbit meat should be alongside that because it has got higher nutritional values. Through research, I am fully convinced with the knowledge I have acquired over actual practice and research. I am actually convinced that it will be an easy deal to go into the Ministry of Health in Zimbabwe and say to them, we would like to put rabbit meat in schools, we would like to put rabbit meat in hospitals, and so forth. There is the hospitality industry and the tourism industry as well that needs rabbit meat. So I I got to a point where I realized that we have got to put the markets into tiers and tiers that we came up with over time were that at tier number one, we need to put rabbit meat in restaurants. Why restaurants at number one is because restaurants by their nature are individual. You go to Capoto and you say to them, we've got rabbit meat, they give you a supply contract. You go to Gala, you get a contract. You go right now, we have got the Rabbit Hole restaurant and we are selling over 150 rabbits every week in our own restaurant. And we want to franchise that and put those rabbit holes across the country. So, with that kind of information and knowledge, we decided, I decided that it was time for us to just invite everyone so that we can meet the required capacity. And the required capacity, it's like what we have now through because we've been doing this now for about 5 years. This is our fifth year doing it commercially since we started. The story I shared is from 2018 when I got the first rabbits from my brother. No, now it's 2025. So we've been farming these rabbits seriously now for about 5 years. And in that 5 years, we've only managed to scratch the surface of the restaurants, which is the first tier. And we've managed to set up rabbit farms across the country of hundreds of farmers. But from those hundreds of farmers, we are only able to satisfy about 10 restaurants, including our own, which is just a drop in the ocean. Uh, Guys, it's a drop in the ocean, and we have to continue on that path. So because we are being constrained by the capacity of the actual production on the farms, and the more people sign up, the more we are able to service the restaurants at tier number one. So just to interest you, tier number two, we've put the hospitality and the tourism industry. We need to put that rabbit meat into hotels, into the tourist destination, because the travelers or the tourists understand a bit more about the value of rabbit meat than we currently do here in Zimbabwe. Yes, we've been doing a lot of work to educate people and get them to understand the value of rabbit meat, and it's working, but the pace is a bit slow. So at tier number two, we want to put it into the resorts and into the tourist destinations like Vipos, etc. And then at tier number three, we want to go into what we are calling institutional markets. Institutional markets is your government departments, the schools, the universities, the hospitals, etc. And then at tier number four, I don't know how many years from now we will be able to meet this demand, but at tier number four, we've got the mass markets, which is your supermarket chains, your spas, your TMs, your pick and pays, etc. And your OK Zimbabwe. How many, in 2022, we had a collaboration, a market research collaboration with Bon Marché Zimbabwe, whereby we displayed our cages and rabbits in them across all the Bon Marché stores in Harare during the Easter month. We were running this theme that the Easter bunny rabbits, kids can come in store and touch the rabbits, and also, but in the background, we're running a research to see how many people would be interested in actually farming the rabbit meat and how many people would want to buy it as meat in store. So the supermarket was interested in the numbers of people buying meat. We were interested in the number of people that would be willing to farm rabbit, and it was a huge success. That market, that market research, it showed that we were going in the right direction, and now at that tier on the mass markets, that's I was saying is the supermarkets, the butcheries, all the goch places around the country. All of them have to get that supply, and then how long is it going to take us to actually fill up that tier? It's going to take us many years. And then I looked at the last tier, which is the export market. I researched the export quota required for us to be able to export rabbits into European countries, firstly. And the minimum requirement is something like 5 tons every 2 weeks, 5 tons rabbit meat every 2 weeks. So this is where the drive has been for us to say, let's have an outgrow program. Let's invite others to come in to the rabbit farming space, because it can't be an individual effort. It can't be the white meat company alone. Let people come in as at a country level, and I'm happy to say that we are now being courted by government as well, and they want to get involved in this rabbit farming space through their civil service. Those who are retiring out of the civil service are being encouraged, and we are supposed to train them into rabbit farming, and then we are working on modalities of how they can be empowered with the right equipment, training, as well as breeding stock, and then they start to join the army that is going to be farming rabbit. And yeah, I think that is the background to how we have gotten so much involved in rabbit farming to this point. And on the backdrop, when we started, it was just the rabbit farming, and then we commercialized it, and then we opened the factory now that actually makes the correct stages. It took us some time to develop the correct equipment, and we are ever improving our equipment, but we've come up with models of actual rabbit sheds, the actual superstructure, the housing, if you like, where you actually put the rabbit cages inside for protection as well as security, etc. We've developed that in partnership with another company, and then we've also partnered with National Foods in terms of the feed that we give to the rabbits to make sure that it's fully commercialized. And then we've opened that factory for making the actual cages, which can meet international standard requirements, so that in the future, I don't know how many years, but in the future, we should be able to export our rabbit meat to international markets and other byproducts. And then what else? We've started the Rabbit World franchise as a place where people can actually meet and enjoy rabbit meat amongst other white meats for health benefits. And we want to franchise that, as I said earlier. And we want to partner with other farmers in, to run those franchises in areas where we don't reach, like away from Harare. We are based in Harare, so all our outlets will be in Harare. We have two now. Target is 5 in Harare, but outside Harare, we want to invite those who will be farming rabbits with us to also set up, as outlets for people to offload their produce, as well as for the public to enjoy rabbit meat at a restaurant level. Uh, yeah, so basically that's the background of it, and it's going pretty well. And I'm happy to say that we've got so many people that have joined so far. I think I can leave it at that and allow you questions. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, my brother. So I've seen before I even pose my question, I've seen Titi has been typing a lot in the chat box there. I don't know if she's able to come up. But she started by a question to say how sustainable. She said, how profitable is this business really? I know several farmers who joined and dropped off because of non-payment issue. You do not pay as per terms promised 21 days. And then she said, tell prospective cage buyers that they will have to find their own market for extra bucks. And the market price is $5 per bag at dry make. So if one is extra bucks, it will be a loss. That's
Okay, that's a
Tsitsi's
very good
contribution there.
question. That's a very good question. Those are very good questions, and they can easily be responded to because they are asked all the time. First and foremost, in terms of extra bucks, unfortunately, Zimbabweans are not always loyal to one another. What we discovered early on about 4 years ago was that some people were, I don't know if the word arbitrage applies here, but what people were doing now is they were going outside the program to buy and source rabbit meat or rabbits from rural farmers and giving them very little payouts for their rabbits and then putting them together with our. Okay, I think I need to first of all say that we only do New Zealand whites. The reason we do New Zealand whites is because of their attributes, including their high meat to bone ratio and their what you call it resistance to disease, etc., and the preference of the international market for that meat because of its texture and its taste, which immediately disqualifies our indigenous rabbits like your chinchillas or all those brown mixed rabbits that you get kumamisha. So what people were doing now is they were going kumamisha, gotenga tsuro at a very cheap price, and then they come to us pretending that they farmed them under the program and feeding them into the system, which was compromising the premium breeding stock that we have. We have got very premium and high pedigree breeders in the New Zealand white, but now we were noticing mixed whites coming through, and we had to mitigate a solution to stop that from happening. So one of the things we did was to say, right, if you are bringing rabbits, you have to bring an equivalent amount of doors, which is the female rabbit, as well as the bucks. Because what others were doing is they were holding on to the doors and selling them on their markets or in their farms, and then only bringing the bucks to us, which was defeat the whole object of the Outgrower program, which entailed that we actually grow farms through the provision of of equipment and breeding stock of these premium quality New Zealand whites. So these people that were withholding the females and only delivering rabbits, male rabbits, were torpedoing that drive, meaning that we're now stuck with males only and no way of empowering the next farmer on one hand. And then I think the other question that, and we had to stop that. Then the other question raised was the issue of payments. We are the middlemen. What we have done as white meat companies, we have set ourselves up as an aggregator of all these farms. We've got over 1,000 farmers countrywide, and it's growing every day. And that is not a small thing to manage, especially when you're dealing with individual and independent farmers that can do whatever they like on their farm. So we had to put in place parameters, operational parameters. So there are certain individuals that like to operate outside systems like Chita, which puts the whole program at risk because the moment we get contamination in the breeding stock, we can no longer claim the legitimacy or the we can no longer legitimately claim that our breeding stocks is pure because it has been compromised by somebody who's doing their own thing and not following the rules. And most of the time, People that complain are the ones that will be breaking the rules. And what we normally do is when we detect that, we just evict them from our system. So um, when we receive rabbits from across the country, and we receive over 500 rabbits every week, and of those 500 rabbits we receive, we don't use them. You heard me earlier saying that our restaurant is now using 150. It hasn't always been like that. The rest of them are used by other restaurants that we supply to, including some prominent hotels that we've been supplying rabbit meat to. The payment terms that are referred to as 21 days are indicative. This is Zimbabwe. And anyone that is operating an honest business in Zimbabwe will tell you honestly that payments do not always happen the way that you want. I will explain that a little further. We They are not our payment terms, they are market payment terms. The people that we supply to stipulate that they want to pay in 30 days. We stipulate 21 to 30 days as indicative to the farmer. But we do put in there a further statement to say that subject to collections from off takers, because we can't use 500 rabbits a week, we have to distribute them elsewhere. And if, for example, X company that we've supplied rabbit meat to do not pay in 21 days, all we can do is to push them for payments, and we have to apply reasonable pressure. Why reasonable pressure? Is because we need that market tomorrow. This is a very difficult cash market, this current economy. It's a very difficult cash market. And when you try to cater for a market for the whole country in terms of the rabbit farmers, they all come to you and they are looking at us as the white meat company to give them a market, which we've said we have. And indeed, we have the market. We go to that market to say we have the rabbit meat, and the market says, okay, give it to us, we'll pay you in 30 days. 30 days comes, and X company has not yet paid because they're saying we are collecting money. We say to the farmer, look, if we have money in our account, we'll pay you from our own money. But please understand that we are waiting for payment from X company. And a lot of people coming to the farming space with little financial knowledge, or they come in and this is why we've also set up the master classes, because we want people to understand the terrain that they are getting into. You can farm today and deliver product worth $1,000, and in the end, you are expecting to get paid tomorrow. It doesn't always work that way. And sometimes the white meat company, being a private limited company, we are not financed by a bank or by anyone. We are financed by our off-takers, the ones who are actually consuming the rabbit meat that is being farmed. And most of our farmers have been paid all the time. It's one or two individuals that have been farming kunonzi kuvhima une sauti muhomwe kuti warima nhasi mangwana wakutotsvaga mari. There is a vicious circle of payments that anyone that is operating a legit business in Zimbabwe understands. Let me put it in this way to close that chapter. We are currently owed as a business over 35,000 in deliveries that are supposed to be paid. Our Outgrowers book is owed less than 5,000. It means that my company has sponsored farmers to the tune of that amount, to the tune of over 20,000 from our own coffers, without a bank loan, without bank support, because banks don't really support businesses here. So if somebody fails to understand that, then they will start to become impossible to deal with. And for us to then go to the off-takers and behave the same way, to say we are business people, we can't go to. I'm trying not to mention companies because there are companies that owe us that amount, but I can't go to a company that is a good client to us and start throwing my toys out of the window, because tomorrow they will not give us the business. I have to apply reasonable pressure through the normal system. And if they promise that they are going to pay us, we have to wait on that promise and reasonably continue to pressure them. And they do eventually get to pay us. But in the meantime, we have other business interests that bring in money, and we are paying outgrowers all the time. Our payment book will show you that we pay so many thousands every single week, because we are receiving rabbits all the time. Every day we are receiving rabbits and they have to be paid for. So if one doesn't really understand that money cycle, then they become a little bit extra in their demands, to the point whereby it becomes impossible to deal with them. But my choice as an individual is that we come and we set up these master classes so that one can come in with an informed idea as to what they are getting into. It's not only about payments. There are many things. Are you actually farming the correct way? Is your farm making profit? I think the other question she asked is, how profitable is it? It costs $3 to raise a rabbit to market size. We are buying it at $8.50 average. Raymag that they mentioned is buying at $5. That same carcass. We are paying a lot more, which is $3.50 more. To our outgrowers. And those who have been following the rules and doing the correct things have been getting, growing their farms from the very income that they are getting from their deliveries to us. To me, that is evidence that they are actually making a huge profit, because the minimum profit on a rabbit carcass is $5. That's how much they are making. In comparison, a chicken farmer is making $1 to $1.25 per bird. A rabbit farmer is making $5 plus. And we've proved that through our master classes, where we show the costings and where we show the buyback prices and thereof the profit.
Great. So Titi is still here. And I wish if Titi could actually grab the mic, because she went on to ask, to say, if a farmer is outside Harare and make it before 11 a.m., you will not take the rabbits. But if you say payment comes at 21 days, then it's day 40 with no payment. How will the farmer survive? If sales are not really moving your side, isn't it a red flag? So the reason why I'm bringing up these questions is we want to make sure that everything is clear, and we make sure that even those who want to come in and start rabbit farming, they'll be able to understand the journey. And I've understood from the way you have presented before. Titi came on and asked those questions. Maybe we can have a live question from Tawanda. He has raised this question. Then we can go back to Titi, as he or she is still typing, and she could also raise a hand. And I think it's important if we get a live conversation where we can actually get to clear all these myths and misconceptions. Because you know what happens in business? At times, people can have all these things in their heads, but if they are not like outlined appropriately, at times they can actually affect even those who want to come in. So, Lakama, you can go ahead with your question. Then we go back to Titi with the questions that she has put in the comment section.
Just before just just before Lakama comes in, if I may, first and foremost, I'm not sure who is not been paid for 40 days. for starters. I do have an accounts department responsible for payments. I'm the managing director of the company, and my instructions remain the same. Any money that comes in from off-takers goes to outgrowers because they are the owners of the product. That doesn't change. It's the principle that we work by, and we have got so many suppliers that bring rabbits to us. So if there's a one person that has got an issue with payments, I think the correct thing for them to do, because I don't think it would be fair, because when you invited me into this, you say that it is for me to make a presentation on rabbit farming and why it is beneficial for people. It is not to be put on trial for my accounts department, and I don't think it would be fair to be ambushed like that, my brother Twan. So I'm
Yeah,
hoping
exactly. I
whoever is
actually
representing
also
can approach it from a business. Yeah,
no, I
I
agree
think
with you,
from
and
a
I
business
also
perspective.
wish if
Mm,
Titi could come up because she has sent a bit of messages like in the messages, and she's still keeping on sending the messages. She sent a message. I have a very close relative I'm protecting who is or was part of this, so because I don't want to jeopardize their contract. But now the thing is if you're saying you are protecting a relative, what is important now is to come up, because what we are doing is Africa diaspora business. We are saying if any company is coming up and they're offering a contract, or a contract is coming up and business are coming up, we have to be open and be frank to each other and make sure that if businesses are coming up, we are all acquainted with knowledge. I'll give you a very good example.
exactly.
There's a guy who came to me, like for example, Mkoma, you are here right now. There's a guy who came up when we were talking
Mm,
about Nema chickens. The guy was telling me that his eggs, he
mm,
went with the eggs to Nema chickens, but the eggs did not hatch as to his expectations.
okay.
Then the questions that I asked is, how did you handle your eggs from the point that you got the eggs up to the point that the eggs were supposed to be hatched? That question was not answered. But now, if you fail to handle the eggs properly, then it becomes another problem. So we need to make sure that if the suppliers are coming here and the person who is aggrieved is also supposed to come here, and we make sure that if we are saying, no, my brother, white commercial farmer is here, is doing rabbits. When he's responding to the questions, we are not supposed to ambush him, but we are supposed to bring the questions that are related to rabbit farming. I know you've got more than 500 whatever farmers who can be coming to you. So it's important if someone comes up live, then they ask a question. My brother, we brought so many rabbits to you. You did not meet the expectations. Then you are able to respond to such questions. Then, if it's only coming to the chat box and the person is not ready to come up to ask the questions on a live platform like this one, then it becomes another problem, because we won't be frank enough, because we don't want to pin you to say kuti kana munhu one achiti iye hazvina kundifambira, then the other 50 or 100 farmers hazvina kudini, hazvina kuvafambira. Maybe that particular person haana kukwanisa kumita the requirements of that particular contract. I know kuti there are requirements, even tikati tiri kuenda kurabbit, tikati tiri kuenda kuchicken farming, even tikati tiri kuenda kukettle farming, even pigary, kune marequirements anonzi unofanira kutika maboxes 1 2 3 4 5 for you to be able to become a contract
Exactly.
farmer.
Exactly. So you find that some of the people they feel kuti some of the rules that have been put in place or the parameters are punitive. Some people feel kuti they are too what's the word too strict. We are too strict. But one thing that you've said, which I'm going to support and agree with, is that in anything that you're doing with individuals across the country, there has got to be parameters, standard operating parameters for a set goal. Our goal is to produce a certain quality of meat that meets a certain market demand. And we are aware of what the market wants. We are teaching people what the market wants. And some people want to insist on producing what they want, but then we won't be able to offload it into the market. So we have put a set of rules and parameters. One of them, which I'm going to use, is the example that Titi raised, to say that if we are coming out of town and we arrive after 11, we don't accept the rabbits. That rule is not because we don't want to work after 11. It just shows that she or her relative has not understood the principle behind that. The principle is that rabbits have to travel early in the morning when it is cool, because rabbits do not have a cooling system. They only cool through their ears and their noses. So rabbits can't regulate the temperature as well as other animals or big animals can, like cows or goats. So they only sweat through their ears and their nose. So if they travel in the afternoon when it's high noon and the sun is up to Pisa, they get to the destination, which is the white meat company, za heat truck, or in heat stroke. So the farmer brings them to us. That will affect Kwane heat. Then they go away saying, I've delivered 100 rabbits. Here is my invoice for $850. But what then happens is they don't all recover because Zafamba kuchipisa. Panosara pachifa 20. But we can't go back to Titi and say, kuti, pasara pachifa 20, she reduce our invoice yako by 20 rabbits. It's no longer 100, it's now 80. You will not agree because Asia Suros remain. So we were making losses early on before we understood this. But as we got to practice and learn, we realized that no, farmers have to, even if you're coming from Blue Air, if you leave early in the morning at 6, you will get to Harare in reasonable time before the rabbits are strained. But a farmer doesn't understand that. Will think that these guys wakaoma. Our closing time for receiving rabbits is 11:30 a.m. It is for the rabbits' reason, so that they travel to Tonora, not for us, but for the rabbits. Because our working day is normal, it's 8 to 5. But we are trying to get people to understand that famba ikuseni zisa affected heat. So somebody doesn't understand that. So how do I do it, you know? So we try and educate people. Again, I want to refer back to the master class, and say the master class was designed for that purpose, to train people so that we have knowledgeable farmers, people that know what they are doing. And those that have, interestingly enough, those that have attended master class, they are the ones that are making serious deliveries. They are also the ones making serious money. But there are people who feel good master class is perhaps a waste of money, so they don't want to, we don't need to go to Chikoro. Those ones are the ones who are doing badly because they don't really understand why we say some of the things we say, why we say Surongadiwe before 11:30, why we say Gutizoni, you might get your payments a little later than 30 days. Because those of us listen, you know what, we're in Zimbabwe. Sometimes if Zimbabwe says they are paying us in 30 days, sometimes they can stretch that to 40 days. Do you have a problem with that? If you have, then perhaps you need to sell elsewhere, because it will be a problem tomorrow. But a lot of the people that come through the training, they get to understand the deeper things of rabbit farming. And those are the people we want to work with, because this is a voluntary farming program. And those that have taken it to heart have been making money, because rabbit farming makes 5 times more profit than chicken farming. And that is a proven fact.
Yeah, thanks, Mukoma. I am really happy. I love these strange questions, and they actually quiz us
They're
to,
important.
yeah, they quiz us to explain more and relieve all those who be having so much stresses. I'm also live streaming this on Facebook, and we have it on Facebook. We want to make sure that if the farmers are coming in, the five we get that are serious about whatever they want to do will be able to do it seriously. My vision is that if we want to build our own Zimbabwe, let's have the knowledge. There are people who have stretched
100%.
themselves to acquaint themselves with the knowledge, and they've researched and they got the knowledge. But now, if you outgrow this to someone who has not researched enough and they are not prepared, even if you do chickens, they will fail. Even if you do piggery, it will fail.
100%.
Even if you do anything that you would think of, it will fail. Let's get to Tawanda and hear what he wants to say.
Okay, thank you so much,
Okay.
Mr. Tinash. Look, first of all, I want to give accolades to Mark Kuchete. Look, thumbs up for you. Basara Bata, the journey that you walked, I think we are all benefiting because you took that time to research and to go through what you're saying. And second, before that, I think like what Mr. Tinash is saying for everyone, and touching on Titi. This is a good opportunity in terms of evolving of businesses in Zimbabwe. It's a tough terrain which no one has ever navigated before. And either way, whether it's Titi or Makuchete, through Batswana and Sana, and I think we shouldn't take it as a blame game. That city, we are building businesses that are going to work, or prototype systems that are going to work. So thank you, Mr. Makuchida, for explaining. I also didn't know as well. Sister Titi, this is also an opportunity for you to actually get that one-to-one attention. I think, yeah, Amunyang, Mr. Tinash, thank you for the opportunity as well to mediate. My question now comes, Pakuti, how do we, okay, and this year I'm going to start in a masterclass. Woku, in 6 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks, let's go to meet after how long, in terms of turnover. Then could somebody understand, say, Kubambo Shaba, do you have any support systems, equity, one would want to turn it into, small property, about 250 square meters? Would you have any support systems or my prototype sheds? One can put, I don't know if it makes sense. It's about stand just to try and delve into the business, and you people are surrounding Lombosha who in the system already who can support as well. Thank you.
So thanks, Mukoma. Before you respond, I think just bunch this with the question that James has. He's saying, let's be frank enough. If I buy rabbits, do you guys help with market? Like Mr. Nema buys back so as to reduce stress level of having a lot of rabbits, but no market. But can I say a point? James, are you there? Because if James, you are there, you can add a point. Then my brother who can be here to respond to the two questions, because I think they are the same. James Mbaba, are you there? Hello, James.
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, I just wanted to ask a quick question. Like, so if I get to buy some rabbits, say, do you have a ready market? Like example, I can just give an example of Mr. Nema. That what he does is that to the people that are joining the business of poultry farming, he buys back to them. Do you have a ready market or Indo Dayas? That's my quick question.
I like that. Having grown up in Blue Whale and attended high school there, went there. I always love to hear Ndebele coming through. Yeah, in terms of market, our moniker or our payoff line, for those who have been following us closely, is that we are your first market. We have said we are your first market because the motive behind the Outgrower program in the first place was to bring up capacity of rabbit farming countrywide. It hasn't always been easy because a lot of people have come through. Unfortunately, this is the mindset that we have as Zimbabweans, and then we run off with it, totally take. There are a few people that have done that, but basically, the reason or the clarion call to become an rabbit nation that we have been issuing is because of the demand from the market for product. Earlier on, perhaps you had not joined yet, but earlier on, I went through the 5 tiers of markets that we have identified and that we already have in hand. One is the restaurants, 2 is the hospitality industry, 3 is the institutions like the hospitals, schools, etc. 4 is the mass market, which is the supermarkets, and 5 is your export market, which we are years away from. So we will always need products from our farmers. Unfortunately, a few of our farmers, I can say roughly about 30% of our farmers, have come through and have not honored that gentleman's agreement. Because the way we've done this, being a private limited company, is we didn't want to tie ourselves up into contracts per se. And the people also didn't want to be tied up in contracts per se, whereby they were forced to bring everything they produce to us. So through advisement and through consultation, we came up with what I like to call a laissez-faire approach to it, or a voluntary farming program, whereby we convince people to return products to us because we need it and because tukufambira kamwechete. Those who are willing are the ones that have been supporting the business and the vision by bringing their produce back to the white meat company. It's not at the level we would want it to be. We would rather have everyone bringing their produce back. But as I say, there are always people that have got their own view. Because this is premium stock we're talking about. Vadzirima havadzokenadzo vanotanga kudzitengesa mumagroups, kudzitengesa mumaarea avo nemacommunities avo. But I'm happy to say the vast majority bring back to us. I don't think they would still be bringing back to us, and I don't think our restaurants will still be receiving deliveries if they were not getting payments. You know, just as a sidebar. They keep bringing because they are getting payments. So I think that handles the question on whether we buy back or not. Yes, we do. We are your first market, and rabbit meat is now in demand a lot more than it ever has been before. We are always running out of product. On our list of inquiries, we have got tens of restaurants that have approached us wanting rabbit meat, but we don't have the capacity to supply to them. So they are in a waiting list. The more people that bring deliveries or that come into the rabbit farming space, the more restaurants we can service on that first tier. So yes, we will buy back whatever you produce, because that's why we are asking you to farm it in the first place. I think the other question from the other gentleman was about site support. I personally have I can't promise the sustainability of the promise now because of the rate at which the farming has grown across the country. But initially or tentatively, I've always said, Kuti, I would love to visit every single farm on a first visit that we do, courtesy for the farmer, just to support them, to point them in the right direction. And we've been doing that. Recently, I posted a video. I'm sure, Tawanda, you saw it since you follow us closely. We visit farmers, and recently we visited one water who's doing extremely well. They've put up 10 commercial size rabbit trees, and they are about to put up 2 more from the proceeds of those. So we do support farmers. Uh, but because it's something I've been doing as myself, I've now had to build a team of youngsters around me to help me with that effort. Because we've got farmers in Mutare, farmers in Wange, so it's not feasible for me to do all the site visits in Dega. But I really love to do that, and I'm now saying those who are doing it at commercial level are the ones that I visit first, and then the ones doing it at a smaller capacity, I send the youngsters to go and visit them.
Perfect.
I don't know if I've covered those two questions.
Perfect. I think you did. And Taferenyika Shoko is still having his hand up. And Titi, we'll come back to you, but I would love you, Titi, to come on the mic. I'm sure it will pay more if you come on the mic and to be able to have an interaction with the white meat company, because they're here and they are ready to make sure that everything is cleared up, and we are able to build between the people who are in Zimbabwe and those who are in the diaspora. So, Shogo, if you're able to unmute yourself, please shoot.
Okay. Just before Shoko comes in, I wanted to say, Kuti, I think Kuti Tsitsi has got an issue with a relative, yeah, Kuti Agri Protector. I think the professional approach would be for Tsitsi to approach my office. I'm inviting her to approach my office directly, because I don't think it would be professional for her to come with queries representing one relative in this open forum. Ngawe in the correct manner, so that at least we can address it and so resolve the issue correctly. Because I'm feeling like in the ambush in this meeting, and I don't think that is correct.
It's okay. I'm okay, Mr. Whitemeat. I'm okay, my brother. And the thing is, what we want is, if ever things go wrong, we can actually sort them out. Not everything can be 100%, but there could be issues.
Absolutely.
But if you are in diaspora, and the diaspora that I'm talking about is not even people who are outside Zimbabwe. A person can be in Harare and have a business running in Beitbridge, but might not be able to visit Beitbridge every day. But the business has to be running in Beitbridge, and they can spend about 3 to 4 months without visiting Beitbridge. And a person who is coming from Australia or the Republic of Ireland can visit Beitbridge before a person who is in Harare visits Beitbridge. But what I'm actually like, I'm ready to say this, guys. Let's be ready to walk with those who have walked the journey before we are told of who they are. Let's introspect and work with them and understand their concepts. First, if we understand their concepts, then we take what we have, we merge with that. If we merge, then it makes us people who are knowledgeable of what we want to do. Because the thing is, a person would have made a research for 5 years and then start to be in business and then bring other people to come in into a contract maybe after 5 years, because they've already made losses within the last 5 years. But does not take away the fact that losses can be made even within those. After 5 years, losses can still be made. But what we are saying is, as diasporians, as people who are far from the projections or from where the projects are being done, we can still have problems. Shogo, you can go ahead with the question. Titi, please come up. I want you to be on the speakers and we are able to interact with my brother here. And we are not fighting here. We want to make sure that as Zimbabweans, we are able to build businesses together. Shogo, please go ahead with your question.
Hello, Boss Tinashe, how are
Go
you?
ahead, my brother.
Okay. What I wanted to ask my brother is, for the meantime, I just want to produce rabbits for domestic purposes. It's a project that I tried back home, at my place, where my family is living right now. It's just a 250 square meters tent. So we had cages at the backyard. We produced the rabbits until I think the highest number we achieved was 75. It worked for us. That was the COVID period. On the day of slaughter, we would slaughter maybe 10, 15. Then in terms of meat, we were covered. And we would sell maybe 10 or so. It was going very well. But these rabbits just started dying. I had to stop because it was now affecting my kids emotionally. You know, when you are sleeping in your bedroom, maybe after last night's drinking and all that, you just want to rest, and a child comes holding 2, 3, 4 rabbits that are dead, and that child is crying. So it didn't go down well with me, and collectively as a family, we just resolved to stop. Of course, the pressure now was coming from the mother. Say my kids are being affected by this. She was now forgetting the benefits, like slaughtering 10 rabbits. How many meals are you supposed to get from there? So I wanted to ask, the issue of space. How many rabbits occupy what space? And secondly, what vaccines are we supposed to buy? Because for now, all I want to do is to produce those rabbits at a domestic level again, back in my rural area, to just make sure people have got a source of protein. Then for commercial reasons, which will be my last question, how much startup capital can really somebody look at, both in terms of acquiring of building the shelter? That's one. Secondly, buying the breeding stock, and thirdly, buying the vaccines. Then lastly, buying enough feed until somebody can be able to sell, and make sure that the business is now financing itself. Thank you.
Can I go ahead
Yeah,
and
thanks,
respond?
Mukoma. It's been a lot anyway, but I think you grasped a lot from what he asked. But you can respond to what you got from Taferenyika. He had a lot anyway.
Yes, rabbits dying is a very disturbing thing, and we emphasize a lot on avoiding mortality during our training. Rabbits are very clean animals. They live off the ground, unlike chickens, pigs, and cows that live in their own mess. Rabbits live suspended in the cages, in the cage system, and the cage systems that we have designed are designed to make sure that the rabbits do not come into contact with pathogens and diseases. In fact, we are emphasizing the production of organic rabbit meat. That is one of our strong suits, that we are saying we want to give people organic meat. And for us to be truly organic, we can't then be dabbling in treatments and illnesses or having to contend with vaccinations and so forth. What we have in our production system is what we call preventive treatment that we do bi-monthly. And it's in two regimens. That's one is that we sterilize the environment of the rabbit once every 2 months, of the rabbits once every 2 months with agents like viral kill or your simple household G diluted in water. You can then sanitize the environment that the rabbits in case there are some pathogens developing or some disease lacking in that space. That's the first intervention. The second one that we do bi-monthly is the one we do in between breeding cycles, which is the deworming of the mother doors. The mother doors then transmit that into their kids, and if they are pregnant, then the pregnancy is also sanitized that way. And those interventions, coupled with the brilliant cage systems that we have developed over the last 5 years, have ensured a very clean and sanitary environment for the rabbits, ensuring that our mortality rate is almost zero in our rabbitry. We have got very far in between cases where you get a report from the team in the rabbitry to say we have a rabbit that has died today. Perhaps because of blood or perhaps because of a genetic defect. And we are always picking out those defects to make sure that we are improving our pedigree at all times. I also want to mention in this instance that we do not encourage inbreeding, which is also a common practice in backyard domestic rabbit farming, whereby people, just like I did in the beginning, where I just left them in the backyard and they started multiplying. It means brothers, sisters, fathers, daughters, they were mating and producing kids. And those kids, the immunity system is heavily compromised. Anyone in this chat that understands animal husband will tell you that one of the biggest compromises to animal health is inbreeding and inmating. So we completely abhor that, and we import our bats from South Africa. We have partnered with a few farmers in the Potchefstroom area in South Africa that are producing good bats for us that we import, so that we are always improving our genetics. And that is our biggest strength as the white meat company, is that we have got high pedigree stock in breeding stock. So that is so the factors I've mentioned, which is cleanliness, correct cage systems. If you are keeping rabbits in wooden structures, that is an abomination, because wood, by its nature, it retains moisture, and when that happens, it becomes a breeding ground for pathogens and for disease, and then that is transmitted into your rabbits, and you start to experience high mortality in your infants. And it is said that in the beginning, before we understood all this, we would sweep up 15, 20, 30 rabbits every morning, to a point where sometimes I would actually kozeza kunyika kuti ndiende kurabbits ndinoona because nechitaught kwafanani. But that was a teaching, that was a learning curve for me as a person and for my family, because we started doing this Tingori family before we employed all these other people. So in your case, whereby rabbits started to die, I would need to understand the kind of cage systems you were using, also the kind of breeds that you had, because the indigenous rabbits or the mixed breeds, as it were, do not have that high resistance to disease like this pedigree stock that we are talking, high pedigree stock we are talking about here. It is very resistant to many diseases that affect rabbits. And as I say, in our own parties, we have got almost zero mortality. And when a rabbit dies, we go really deep and we partner with a few vets as well, including the University of Zimbabwe vets and the ones at KD6. We work with them on the farm. So we really dig deep to see why the rabbit is dying. So our water system is a closed system in that case, meaning nothing foreign can get in that water system. We also teach people that your water source must be of the proper quality. The simple common denominator is that if it's not fit for human consumption, then you shouldn't be giving it to your rabbits. So we do have a lot of people that do their own thing and then they end up with rabbits dying. And when we visit the farm and we investigate, we often find that either they are not cleaning the cage systems properly, and we do teach how to look after these cages, which are semi-automated, meaning that the labor factor is very low. One person can look after up to 1,000, 1,500 rabbits in 4 hours a day, and then attend to other chores during the day, you know. But that's because the cage design makes the chore very pleasurable to clean, and it's easy. So we do that so that rabbits, listen, the main player here is the rabbit. If the rabbit is in a clean environment, because it is a clean animal and it has got access to clean water, and it is getting these interventions, those bi-monthly interventions I mentioned earlier, then you shouldn't be having rabbits dying. I don't know if I've answered your question in full, sir.
Yeah, I'm answered, but just